Lena Carver stands in the wreckage of first class, champagne soaking her silk blouse, passengers staring in stunned silence as the captain's voice crackles over the intercom, announcing the flight's grounded until further notice. Hours ago, it was a routine Los Angeles to New York trip for a titan of industry. Now she's branded a thief, a liar, a nobody, yet she owns this plane. This mess is just the spark of a brutal war she'll wage. What unleashed this storm? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from, and if you stand for justice-shattering arrogance, hit like and subscribe for more explosive tales. Lena Carver moves through the sprawling chaos of Los Angeles International Airport with the kind of quiet confidence that turns heads, but doesn't beg for attention. Her late 30s frame is wrapped in a tailored gray suit, the fabric hugging. Her shoulders just right, a silver pin gleaming on her lapel. Her black hair pulled into a sleek bun that says she's here to get things done. She's the CEO of Carver Air, a company she built from a single charter plane to a fleet that crisscrosses the country. And today she's catching one of her own flights from Los Angeles to New York for a board meeting that could lock in a $50 million expansion deal. Her brown eyes scan the terminal, taking in the hurried shuffle of travelers dragging roller bags, the tinny voices spilling from overhead speakers calling out gate changes, the faint whiff of overpriced coffee lingering in the air. She's flown first class more times than she can count, her heels clicking against the polished floor with a rhythm that's become second nature, each step a testament to years of clawing her way up in a world that rarely makes room for someone like her, a black woman who doesn't just play the game but rewrites the rules. She adjusts the strap of her monogrammed briefcase, the leather soft under her fingers, and heads toward Gate 47, where her plane waits, a sleek jet painted with the Carver Air logo she designed herself. The boarding line snakes ahead, a mix of suits and casuals clutching phones, their faces buried in screens or darting around with that restless energy of people itching to get airborne. Lena steps up to the podium, her posture straight, her presence commanding without trying, and slides her phone across the counter to the lead attendant, a woman whose name tag reads Paige Hensley. Paige is in her early 30s, blonde hair twisted into a tight ponytail, her uniform crisp, her lips painted a shade of coral that's just shy of professional. She takes the phone with a flick of her wrist, barely glancing at Lena, her blue eyes skimming the screen like it's an afterthought. She taps it against the scanner, and a sharp beep cuts through the hum of the terminal, the display flashing red with bold letters screaming "Invalid." Paige's lips curl into something that's not quite a smile, more a twitch of satisfaction, and she tilts her head, her voice sliding out with a syrupy edge that doesn't match the steel in her gaze. "Looks like you don't belong here, sweetie," she says, loud enough for the couple behind Lena to hear, their heads snapping up from their whispered argument about delayed luggage. The man, a balding guy in a rumpled blazer, lets out a low chuckle, nudging his wife, who adjusts her oversized sunglasses and smirks like she's just been let in on a secret. Lena's brow lifts slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing her face, because in all her years of flying, this has never happened, not once. Her ticket was confirmed at 6 that morning, double-checked by her assistant, a ritual born from a career where details mean survival. She keeps her tone even, her words clipped but calm, the kind of restraint that comes from knowing chaos isn't worth her energy yet. "There's a mistake," she says, locking eyes with Paige, whose fingers hover over the scanner like she's savoring the moment. "It was confirmed hours ago." Paige's smirk doesn't budge, but her tone dips into something that's almost pity, a performance for the growing audience of passengers shifting their weight behind Lena, their impatience bubbling up in soft sighs and muttered complaints. "Well, sweetie, the system doesn't lie," she drawls, tapping her nails against the podium, the sound a staccato beat that grates against the air. "No valid boarding pass, no boarding. That's how it works." Lena feels the heat of eyes on her back, the subtle shift of bodies as the line grows restless, a woman in a floral scarf whispering to her teenage son, their glances darting her way like she's the holdup, the problem. She's not about to turn this into a circus, not here, not yet. So she keeps her expression smooth, her voice steady, refusing to give them the outburst they're fishing for. "Scan it again," she says, sliding her phone back across the counter, her fingers brushing the cool metal edge. Paige lets out a dramatic huff, her shoulders slumping like this is the biggest inconvenience of her day. But she complies, snatching the phone with a little more force than necessary. This time the scanner hums. A green light flares and the word accepted blinks across the screen. Paige's smirk falters, just for a split second, her eyes narrowing as if the machines betrayed her. But she recovers fast, tossing the phone back with a flick of her wrist. Must have been a glitch, she says, her voice flat now. No trace of apology, no hint of accountability, just a quick glance toward a male attendant hovering nearby, his buzzed head nodding slightly like they're sharing a private signal. Lena catches it, the unspoken pact between them. But she doesn't flinch, doesn't call it out. She picks up her phone, tucks it into her pocket, and moves past Paige, her heels clicking with that same steady rhythm, her briefcase swinging, lightly at her side. As she steps into the jet bridge, the tunnel's cool, sterile air brushes her face, a sharp contrast to the terminal's stale warmth, and she hears Paige's voice drift after her, low but deliberate, just loud enough to sting. "Should've stayed in coach," Paige mutters, the words curling like smoke, meant to burrow under Lena's skin. The familiar burn flares in Lena's chest, that old ache she's carried since she was a kid in a neighborhood where people like Paige assumed she'd never amount to much. But she doesn't turn back, doesn't give her the satisfaction. She's dealt with worse, stared down boardrooms full of men who smirked the same way, and she's still standing, still winning. This is nothing, she tells herself. Just a petty jab from a petty woman who doesn't know who she's messing with. The jet bridge stretches ahead, the faint hum of the plane's engines vibrating through the walls, and Lena breathes deep, letting the irritation settle into something colder, sharper, a tool she'll wield when the time's right. First class waits beyond the hatch. Her world, the one she carved out with her own hands, where leather seats gleam under soft lighting, where gold accents line the trays, where she belongs more than anyone on this flight could ever guess. She steps aboard, her chin high, her stride unbroken, sliding her briefcase under her seat with a practiced ease, the weight of it grounding her. Paige trails behind, her heels tapping a quicker beat now, her eyes flicking toward Lena as she passes, that smirk still clinging to her lips like she scored a point in a game Lena hasn't agreed to play. The other passengers filter in, their chatter filling the cabin, a white guy in a polo shirt grumbling about the delay, a woman with a designer purse clutching it tight as she brushes past Lena's row. Lena leans back, her fingers tracing the smooth armrest, her mind already shifting to the board meeting. The numbers she'll crunch, the deal she'll seal. She's flown this route 100 times, knows every bump of turbulence between here and New York, every quirk of her plane's engines. This is routine, or it should be. A quiet flight to cap a long week. She doesn't see Paige whispering. To the male attendant again, their heads bent close. Doesn't hear the soft snicker that escapes his throat as he nods. She doesn't know yet that this isn't just a glitch, not just a bad day for a rude attendant, but the first move in a chess match she didn't sign up for, one where the stakes are about to climb higher than she could have imagined. Lena adjusts, her jacket, the silk lining cool against her skin, and lets her eyes drift shut for a moment, savoring the calm before takeoff. She's got no clue that Paige Hensley, with her pinched smile and petty power trips, is about to light a match that'll burn this whole flight to the ground, or that the woman she's dismissed as a nobody is the one who holds the keys to everything, including the jet they're all strapped into. The engines rev, a low rumble shaking the floor, and the plane taxis forward, slicing through the Los Angeles haze, carrying Lena toward a storm she'll have to fight tooth and nail to survive. Lena Carver settles into the plush embrace of her first-class seat, the leather cool against her palms as the plane lifts off from Los Angeles, its engines humming a steady tune she knows by heart. The cabin glows with that soft, golden light she insisted on when designing these jets, a touch of warmth against the sterile chill of air travel. She's 38,000 feet above the California sprawl now, the city shrinking into a glitter of lights below. And for a moment, she lets herself relax, her shoulders easing as she reaches down to stow her monogrammed briefcase under the seat. It's a sleek thing, black leather worn smooth from years of boardroom battles, her initials LC stamped in silver near the clasp, a quiet flex of the empire she's built. Inside, there's her laptop loaded with tomorrow's pitch, a stack of contracts for the New York deal, and a thin gold necklace with a tiny emerald pendant, a keepsake from her grandmother who'd whisper, Hold your head high, baby. Whenever the world tried to knock her down, she slides it into the slot, the familiar weight of it grounding her, then leans back, her fingers brushing the silk of her gray suit jacket as she adjusts it over her knees. The hum of the cabin settles in. Passengers flipping through magazines or sipping pre-flight water, their voices a low murmur against the drone of the engines. Lena's eyes flick to the window, catching the last streaks of sunset bleeding into dusk, her mind already halfway to the boardroom, rehearsing the numbers that'll lock in Carver Air's next leap. She doesn't notice Paige Hensley gliding down the aisle yet, her heels silent on the thick carpet, her ponytail swaying like a metronome keeping time to some private rhythm. Paige stops a few rows ahead, chatting up a white guy in a pinstripe suit, her laugh sharp and performative, but her gaze keeps darting back toward Lena, a glint in her blue eyes that's less curiosity and more calculation. Lena's too focused to catch it, her fingers tapping a slow beat on the armrest until she reaches down again to grab her tablet from the briefcase. Her hand freezes mid-air, the space beneath her seat empty, a cold void where her bag should be. She blinks, her pulse ticking up a notch, and leans forward, peering under the row, her bun brushing the seat back as she scans the floor. Nothing, just the faint gleam of carpet fibers and a stray peanut shell someone's kicked aside. Her chest tightens, not panic yet, but a sharp edge of unease slicing through her calm. She straightens, her brown eyes narrowing as she scans the cabin. And that's when Paige saunters over, her coral lips twitching into a smirk that's all teeth and no warmth. "Everything okay, Miss Carver?" she asks, her voice dripping, with a syrupy concern that doesn't reach her face, her head tilting just enough to make it mockingly polite. Lena keeps her cool, her posture rigid, her tone flat but firm, a shield she's honed over years of dealing with people who think they can rattle her. "My carry-on isn't here," she says, locking eyes with Paige, whose smirk deepens, a flicker of triumph dancing in her stare. "Oh, that fancy bag?" Paige replies, her tone light but laced with something sour. "Black leather, monogrammed initials? I saw it when you boarded. Crew probably moved it." She pauses, tapping a manicured nail against her chin, letting the silence stretch like she's savoring it. Sometimes they assume certain bags belong in the cargo hold with the cheap stuff. The words land like a slap, sharp and deliberate, and across the aisle a white passenger in a polo shirt snickers, his sunburned face creasing as he mutters, "Should have kept it closer," loud enough for Lena to hear. His wife, fussing with a cashmere scarf, nods absently, her diamond studs catching the light as she glances at Lena then away, like she's not worth the effort. Lena's fingers curl into her palm, her nails biting into her skin, but her face stays stone, unreadable, refusing to give Paige the reaction she's fishing for. "I need it back," she says, her voice steady, cutting through the attendant's game like a blade. "Now." Paige shrugs, a slow roll of her shoulders that's almost theatrical, her smirk blooming into something bolder. "Oh, it's probably safe somewhere," she says, her eyes glinting with a challenge. "But that's a job for ground staff. Can't stop a flight for one bag, right?" She turns, her ponytail flicking like a whip, and strolls off, leaving Lena staring at her back, the sting of that cheap stuff comment burrowing deep. Lena's gut twists, a familiar ache flaring up, the kind she's felt in boardrooms when execs misplace her proposals, or in stores when clerks trail her like she's there to steal. This isn't random, she knows it, not after Paige's jab at the gate, not with that smirk still burning in her mind. She leans back, her jaw tight, her mind racing as the plane levels off, the seatbelt sign chiming off with a soft ping. She could flag another attendant, demand answers, but she's not about to beg, not yet. Power isn't in the yelling, she reminds herself. It's in the waiting, the watching, the striking when they least expect it. She glances around, catching Paige whispering to that same buzz-cut male attendant from boarding, his head dipping as he nods, a quick flash of teeth showing he's in on it too. Lena's briefcase isn't just luggage, it's her lifeline, her work, her history, and now it's gone, snatched by someone who thinks she's an easy mark. Her stomach knots, but she forces it down, her fingers tracing the edge of her seat as she plots her next move. She's faced worse, she tells herself. stared down bigger sharks than Paige Hensley, and she's still here, still flying. The cabin hums around her, passengers settling in, oblivious to the quiet war brewing in row 3. Lena's not breaking. Not yet, but the heat in her chest is building. A slow burn she'll unleash when the time's right. Paige thinks she's scored a win, thinks she's got Lena on the ropes, but she doesn't know who she's playing with. Doesn't know the woman she's dismissed is the one who owns every inch of this jet, from the engines to the gold-trimmed trays. The plane cuts through the night sky, the altitude ticking up on the screens. And Lena sits there, poised, her mind sharp, ready to turn this petty theft into Paige's first mistake in a game she's about to lose. Hey, what do you think about Paige's move here? Comment 1 if you'd call her out right then and there, or 2 if you'd wait like Lena, biding your time for a bigger hit. If you're raging at this injustice already, smash that like button, and subscribe so you don't miss how this explodes. Ever wonder how far someone like Paige will push before she crashes? Stick around, because what's coming next might just blow your mind. What's Lena gonna do about that missing bag? Lena Carver sits in her first-class seat, the leather still cradling her frame as the plane cruises at 38,000 feet, the hum of the engines a steady pulse beneath her. The golden glow of the cabin lights bounces off the polished wood trim, a detail she fought for when she signed off on this jet's design. A quiet rebellion against the cold efficiency most airlines settle for. Her silk blouse brushes her skin as she shifts, her gray suit jacket draped over her lap, her fingers tapping a slow rhythm on the armrest while her mind churns over the missing briefcase. That lifeline of contracts and memories now lost somewhere in Paige Hensley's petty game. The sting of that cheap stuff jab still lingers, a splinter under her nail, but she keeps her face smooth, her brown eyes fixed on the seatback screen flickering with flight stats. Altitude climbing, miles to New York ticking down. She's not about to let Paige see her sweat. Not when she spent years perfecting the art of staying cool under fire, a skill forged in boardrooms where men twice her age smirked and called her ideas cute before she buried them in results. The cabin buzzes softly around her, passengers flipping through in-flight magazines or sipping water from crystal glasses. Their chatter a low drone she tunes out. She's mid-thought, calculating how to track down her bag once they land when Paige sweeps back into view, her heels silent on the carpet, a clipboard clutched in her manicured hands like a weapon. Her blonde ponytail sways as she stops at Lena's row, her coral lips parting into a smile that's all edges, no softness, her blue eyes glinting with something sharp and deliberate. "Miss Carver," she says, her voice loud enough to carry, cutting through the cabin's hum like a blade. "I'm afraid there's an issue with your seat." Heads turn, a ripple of curiosity spreading. A woman with a sleek bob 2 rows up peering over her glasses. A guy in a polo shirt across the aisle pausing mid-sip to watch. Lena arches a brow, her posture stiffening, her gaze locking onto Paige's with a calm that belies the spark igniting in her chest. "Issue?" she repeats, her tone even, probing, giving nothing away. Paige sighs, a dramatic puff of air that's pure theater, her clipboard tilting as she glances at it like it holds some sacred truth. "Yes, unfortunately this seat's been flagged for maintenance," she says, her words clipped and crisp, her eyes flicking to the pristine leather chair Lena's occupying. "It's out of service for this flight." Lena's gaze drops to the seat, the cushion firm, the armrests spotless. No hint of a tear or a wobble, nothing to suggest it's anything less than perfect. She leans back, crossing her legs, her heel dangling slightly as she meets Paige's stare again. "It seems fine to me," she says, her voice steady, a quiet challenge wrapped in fact. Paige's smile tightens, her lips pressing into a thin line before stretching back into place, a mask of professionalism that's starting to crack. "Safety regulations, Miss Carver," she replies, her tone sharpening. "We take them seriously." She gestures toward the back of the first class cabin, her arm sweeping out with a flourish. "Don't worry, we've found you another seat." Lena follows her gaze, her stomach tightening as she spots the new spot. A cramped middle seat wedged between 2 broad-shouldered white men, their bulk spilling over the armrests, one in a faded denim jacket, the other in a wrinkled button-down, both already sprawled like they own the row. The space is tight, the only middle seat in a cabin built for elbow room and quiet luxury. A downgrade dressed up as a favor. She exhales slowly, her breath measured, her fingers curling into the fabric of her jacket as she weighs her options. Paige tilts her head, her smirk creeping back, a dare glinting in her eyes. "Business class is an option," she adds, her voice dropping into that syrupy drawl again. "If you'd rather not stay in first." The implication hangs there, heavy and pointed, a shove toward the door she knows Lena won't take. Lena's grip tightens, her nails pressing into her palm, but her face stays stone, her posture unbroken, refusing to flinch under Paige's game. "That's unacceptable," she says, her words crisp, cutting through the attendant's bait like a wire. Paige's smirk widens, a flash of teeth showing she's enjoying this, and she leans in just a fraction, her voice low but loud enough for the nosy guy in polo to catch. "I understand your frustration," she says, her tone dripping with fake sympathy, "but it's that or business class. I thought you'd prefer to stay in first." The condescension lands like a brick, wrapped in that thin veneer of professionalism, and the two men in the new seat exchange a glance, the denim guy smirking as he mutters, "Guess that means she's sitting with us, huh?" His buddy chuckles, a low rumble under his breath, his knee shifting wider as if claiming more territory. Already, Lena's jaw clenches, her pulse ticking up, but she keeps her eyes on Paige, reading the play. The way this isn't just about a seat, but about pushing her down, making her small, reminding her she's out of place in a world she built. She's felt this before, the subtle shoves, the sidelong looks, the assumption she doesn't belong, not in corner offices or private jets, not anywhere that isn't less. Paige steps back, her clipboard tapping against her thigh, her smirk lingering like she's sure Lena's about to crack, about to storm off or snap, giving her the win she's chasing. But Lena doesn't budge, doesn't raise her voice, just rises with a slow, deliberate grace, her heels clicking as she moves toward the new seat, her chin high, her suit jacket draped over her arm like armor. She slides in between the two men, their elbows jabbing her ribs as they shift, the denim guy's sleeve brushing her shoulder, the button-down guy's leg pressing against hers, their bulk hemming her in like walls. She sits tall, her back straight, her hands folding in her lap, her face unreadable despite the heat crawling up her spine. The men smirk, one glancing down at her lap, the other spreading his knees wider, claiming every inch he can, but she ignores them, her gaze fixed forward, her mind racing. Paige lingers a beat longer, her eyes narrowing as if waiting for a protest, a plea, something to feed her little victory. But when Lena gives her nothing, she pivots, her heels tapping a quick retreat down the aisle, her ponytail bouncing like she's won this round. Lena's ribs ache where the elbows dig, her space shrinking with every shift of the men beside her. But she doesn't flinch, doesn't adjust, letting the discomfort settle into fuel. She overhears Paige whispering to that buzz-cut attendant. Again, their heads bent close near the galley, a soft, "She'll crack soon," drifting back on the recycled air. Lena's blood boils, a slow simmer turning to a roar, because this isn't random. Not after the gate, not after the bag. It's a pattern, a plan. Paige chipping away at her like she's a bug to squash. She's faced worse, she reminds herself. Sat through depositions where lawyers sneered, stood in lobbies where guards checked her ID twice, and she's still here, still rising. The cabin hums, the seatbelt sign long off, passengers sipping drinks now, oblivious to the quiet war brewing in the back of first class. Lena's briefcase is gone, her seat stolen, and Paige thinks she's got her pinned. But Lena's not breaking. Not yet. She's plotting, her mind sharp, her patience a blade she's sharpening for the right moment. Paige doesn't know it, doesn't see it, but the woman she's shoving into this corner is the one who owns this plane. Every bolt, every light, every smug smile she's throwing around. The flight stretches on, the sky outside darkening to a deep indigo, and Lena sits there, hemmed in but unbroken, ready to turn this sabotage into Paige's next misstep in a fight she's about to regret starting. Lena Carver sits wedged between the two hulking men in her reassigned middle seat. The first-class cabin a gilded cage at 38,000 feet. The air thick with the hum of engines and the faint clink of glassware. The leather armrests press into her sides, the denim-clad guy on her left shifting his elbow into her ribs, the button-down man on her right sprawling his knee against hers, their presence a constant shove she refuses to acknowledge. Her gray suit jacket lies folded across her lap, the silk of her blouse sticking slightly to her skin as the cabin's warmth creeps up. Her posture rigid, her brown eyes fixed on the seat back ahead, tracing the faint glow of the flight map. The missing briefcase gnaws at her, a hole in her armor she can't fill yet, and the sting of Paige Hensley's seat swap still pulses in her veins. But she keeps her face blank, her hands steady, her resolve a steel thread holding her together. She's faced worse, she tells herself. Sat through meetings where her voice was ignored, walked past whispers in executive halls, and she's still standing, still the CEO of Carver Air, the woman who turned a single plane into a fleet. The cabin buzzes softly around her, passengers easing into the flight. Their chatter a dull roar she filters out, her mind replaying Paige's smirk that she'll crack soon, echoing like a taunt. She's mid-thought, plotting how to reclaim her bag. When the dinner service begins, a slow procession of carts rolling down the aisle, the scent of seared meat and buttery rolls wafting through the recycled air. The attendants move with practiced grace, their white-gloved hands balancing trays of steaming filet mignon, golden mashed potatoes swirled with truffle oil, and crisp green beans glistening under the cabin lights. Crystal glasses catch the glow, filled with chilled white wine or amber bourbon, the clink of ice a quiet symphony as they're set on polished trays. Every passenger in first class gets a plate, a glass, a moment of indulgence, the woman with the sleek bob 2 rows up nodding. As her meal lands, the polo shirt guy across the aisle tearing into his steak with a grunt of approval. Lena watches, her stomach rumbling faintly. A reminder she hasn't eaten since a rushed coffee at LAX, but she waits, her hands folded, expecting her turn. The cart stops at her row, the attendant's shadow falling over her, and she turns her head slightly, ready to nod for her pre-order. A grilled salmon she picked when she booked this flight 3 weeks ago. But the attendant, a young woman with a tight bun and a name tag reading Claire, hesitates, her eyes flicking toward Paige, who's hovering near the galley, her blonde ponytail swaying as she gives a small, sharp shake of her head. Claire's lips pressed together, her tray tilting slightly, and then she moves on, the cart rolling past without a word, leaving Lena with nothing but the faint whiff of rosemary and butter lingering in her wake. Lena's brow lifts, her pulse ticking up, but she keeps her face still, her fingers tightening in her lap as the men beside her dig in. The denim guy chewing loudly, his fork scraping the plate, the button-down man slurping his wine with a satisfied sigh. "Guess she's used to less," the denim guy mutters, not bothering to look at her, his voice low but clear, a jab meant to stick. Lena's jaw clenches, her nails digging into her palms, but she doesn't flinch, doesn't snap, letting the insult settle into the pile of fuel she's building inside. She flags Paige as she passes, her heels clicking a steady beat, and keeps her tone level, smooth as glass despite the heat crawling up her spine. "Excuse me," she says, locking eyes with the attendant. "I believe my meal was overlooked." Paige stops, her clipboard tucked under her arm, her coral lips curving into a smirk that's all teeth, no warmth. "Oh, was it?" she replies, her voice light, teasing, her head tilting as if this is a game she's already won. "I don't have you on the pre-order list. First-class dining is limited, you know." Lena's eyes narrow, her mind flashing to the confirmation email she'd triple-checked, the salmon option ticked off with her seat number, 3B, before Paige's little swap. She pulls out her phone, her fingers swift as she opens the app, the receipt glowing on the screen, clear as day. "I reserved my meal when I booked my ticket," she says, holding it up, her voice steady, a quiet blade slicing through Paige's. "Lie." Paige takes a step closer, her smirk faltering for a split second, but she recovers fast, leaning in to check the screen, her ponytail brushing the air as she straightens. "Let me see," she says, her tone dripping with fake concern, then turns, her heels tapping toward the galley, leaving Lena waiting, the men beside her chewing louder, the denim guy wiping his mouth with a grunt. Minutes tick by, the scent of food thickening the air, Lena's stomach twisting as she sits there ignored, the cabin's hum swallowing her patience. Paige returns, her smirk back in full force, her hands empty, her voice a sing-song lilt. "I'm afraid there's nothing left," she says, her eyes glinting with triumph. "System error. Happens sometimes." The button-down guy lets out, a low chuckle, his fork pausing mid-bite. "Tough break, huh?" he mutters, his gaze sliding past her like she's invisible. Paige leans in slightly, her voice dropping, a conspiratorial whisper meant to sting. "I can grab something from business class if you'd like," she adds, her lips twitching. "They might have a sandwich left." Lena's blood boils, a slow roar building in her chest, but she doesn't react, doesn't argue, knowing that's what Paige wants, a crack she can pry open. Instead, she turns forward, her hands smoothing the jacket in her lap, her posture stiffening as if she's already eaten, as if this doesn't faze her. Paige lingers, her eyes narrowing, waiting for a snap, a plea, something to feed her victory, but Lena gives her nothing. Her silence a wall she can't climb. Finally, Paige huffs, a sharp puff of air, and struts off, her heels clicking a retreat, her smirk tinged with irritation now, a hint she's rattled by Lena's calm. The men beside her finish their meals, the denim guy licking butter off his fingers, the button-down man leaning back with a belch, their trays cleared by Claire, who avoids Lena's gaze like it burns. The cabin settles, the lights dimming slightly as the flight stretches on, the altitude steady, the miles to New York shrinking. Lena sits there, her stomach empty, the ache sharpening with every passing minute, but her face stays stone, her hands steady, refusing to bend under this latest shove. She's felt this before, the deliberate exclusion, the assumption she's less, not in boardrooms this time, but in diners, in shops, in lines where people like Paige decide she doesn't rate. The missing bag, the seat swap, now this, it's a pattern, a campaign. Paige chipping away at her like she's a stain to scrub out. Lena's hunger grows, a physical gnaw she pushes down, her mind racing, plotting her next move. She's not breaking, not yet, not when she's faced down bigger fights and won, not when she knows she's got the ace Paige can't see. The woman she's mocking owns this plane, every tray, every glass, every smug word she's tossing around, and Lena's holding that card close, waiting for the moment to play it. The flight drones on, the sky outside a deep velvet black, and Lena sits there, hemmed in, unfed, unbroken, her defiance a fire she's stoking for the reckoning ahead. Lena Carver sits pinned in her cramped middle seat, the first-class cabin a gilded pressure cooker at 38,000 feet, the air thick with the lingering scent of truffle oil and bourbon from the meal she never got. The leather armrests dig into her sides, the denim-clad man on her left chewing the last of his steak with wet smacks, the button-down guy on her right swirling his wine glass, his knee still jammed against hers, their bulk a constant intrusion she refuses to flinch at. Her gray suit jacket stays folded in her lap, the silk of her blouse clinging to her skin as hunger gnaws at her stomach. A sharp ache she buries under a mask of calm, her brown eyes fixed on the seat back ahead, tracing the flight path slow. Crawl toward New York. The missing briefcase, the seat swap, the skipped meal. It's a stack of slights piling up, each one heavier, more deliberate. Paige Hensley's fingerprints all over them, but Lena keeps her hands steady, her posture rigid, her resolve a steel core forged in battles bigger than this. She's faced worse, she reminds herself, stood in rooms where her ideas were stolen, her presence questioned, and she's still the CEO of Carver Air, still the woman who turned grit into gold. The cabin hums around her, passengers settling into post-dinner quiet, their chatter fading to a low buzz, the golden lights dimming as the flight stretches into the night. She's mid-thought, calculating how to turn Paige's games against her, when a sharp shout slices through the calm, a rich passenger 3 rows up leaping to his feet, his voice booming with entitlement. "My wallet's gone. $5,000 in cash," he bellows, his pinstripe suit rumpling as he pats his pockets, his ruddy face twisting in panic. Heads turn, a ripple of gasps spreading. The woman with the sleek bob clutching her purse, the polo shirt guy craning his neck to gawk. Lena's pulse ticks up, her senses sharpening, but she keeps her face blank, her hands still, watching as Paige swoops in, her heels clicking a rapid beat, her blonde ponytail swinging like a pendulum. She stops at the man's row, her coral lips parting in a frown of fake concern, her blue eyes scanning the cabin with a predator's focus, before locking onto Lena, a glint of triumph flashing in her stare. "Miss Carver," she says, her voice smooth as glass but loud enough to carry, cutting through the murmurs like a spotlight. "I'm going to have to ask you to open your purse." The words land like a punch, heavy and deliberate, and the cabin stills, every eye swiveling to Lena, a chorus of whispers rising. "Figures. Check her." No surprise there. Lena's chest tightens, her breath catching, but she keeps her gaze steady, meeting Paige's with a calm that belies the fire roaring inside. "I haven't touched anything," she says, her tone even, firm, a shield against the accusation dangling in the air. Paige's smirk widens, her clipboard tapping against her thigh, her head tilting with mock patience. "We'll see about that," she replies, her voice dripping with authority. "Open it, or we'll search it ourselves." The pinstripe guy waves a hand, his voice gruff. "Hurry up, I want my money back." Passengers nod, their stares hardening, the woman with the bob muttering, "Should have known," under her breath. Lena's heart races, her mind spinning, because this isn't random. Not after the bag, the seat, the meal. It's a setup. Paige's next move in a war she's waging with glee. She reaches for her purse, a slim black clutch tucked beside her, her fingers steady as she unzips it, holding it out with a slow, deliberate grace, her eyes never leaving Paige's. "Go ahead," she says, her voice cutting through the tension, daring her to find something. Paige steps closer, her smirk twitching, and peers inside, her manicured hand hovering, then freezes, her brow furrowing as she finds nothing. No wallet, no cash, just a phone, a lipstick, a pack of mints. The cabin holds its breath, the pinstripe guy leaning forward, his scowl deepening. Paige's eyes narrow, her lips pressing tight, and then with a flick of her wrist, she slips a crumpled $20 bill from her pocket into the purse, pulling it out a second later with a gasp. "Well, look at this," she says, holding it up, her voice rising. "Found it." Gasps erupt, a wave of shock rolling through, the polo shirt guy shaking his head. Unbelievable. The woman with the bob clutching her pearls like Lena's a threat. Lena's blood runs cold, her pulse hammering, but she keeps her face stone, her hands steady, knowing she's been framed, the bill planted in plain sight. "That's not mine," she says, her words sharp, slicing through Paige's lie, but the damage is done, the cabin turning on her, their whispers swelling to a roar. Paige pivots, her ponytail flicking, and calls out, "Captain, we've got a disruptive passenger." Her voice echoing down the aisle as she strides toward the cockpit, leaving Lena under a spotlight of hate. The denim guy beside her shifts, away, his elbow pulling back like she's contagious, the button-down man muttering "thief" under his breath, his wine glass clinking as he sets it down. Lena's heart pounds, her mind racing because she's cleared her name before, fought off worse lies. But this is different, public, personal. Paige twisting the knife with a grin. Footsteps thud, the captain emerging, a tall man in his 50s, his uniform crisp, his gray eyes hard as he stops at her row. Paige at his side, her smirk glowing. "Miss Carver," he says, his voice low, stern. "We've got a problem." Lena meets his gaze, her chin lifting, her purse still open in her lap, the planted bill a glaring lie. "I didn't take anything," she says, her tone steady, a lifeline she clings to. "She put it there." The captain's jaw tightens, his eyes flicking to Paige, who shrugs, her innocence a mask. "Passenger says otherwise," he replies, his words clipped. "We'll sort it on the ground." He turns, retreating to the cockpit, leaving Lena trapped, the cabin's judgment pressing in, a wall of suspicion she can't break yet. Paige lingers, her eyes glinting, her smirk a silent taunt, thinking she's got Lena cornered, broken, ready to snap. But Lena doesn't crack, doesn't plead, just sits there, her hands folding over the purse, her posture stiff, her hunger sharpening into something fiercer, a resolve she's stoking for the fight ahead. She's faced worse, she tells herself, stood up to liars with deeper pockets, and she's still here. Still the one who owns this jet, every inch of it. A truth Paige can't touch yet. The flight drones on, the sky outside a starless black, and Lena waits, her mind sharp, her patience, a weapon she's honing for the reckoning to come. What do you think about this setup? Comment 1 if you'd fight back right there, or 2 if you'd hold steady like Lena, waiting for the perfect strike. If Paige's dirty trick has you fuming, smash that like button and subscribe to catch every twist of this wild ride. Ever faced a lie you couldn't shake off? Tell us below, because this flight's about to hit turbulence. How's Lena gonna flip this frame job on Paige? Lena Carver sits rigid in her cramped middle seat, the first-class cabin a suffocating arena at 38,000 feet. The air heavy with the stale tang of wine and the faint buzz of the jet's engines. The leather armrests bite into her ribs, the denim-clad man on her left shifting away, his elbow no longer jabbing now that he's branded her a thief. The button-down guy on her right clutching his glass tighter, his knee still crowding her space, their silence a wall of judgment. She refuses to bow to. Her gray suit jacket stays folded in her lap, the silk of her blouse damp with the sweat of hunger and fury. Her brown eyes locked on the seat back ahead, tracing the flight path's slow arc toward New York. Now a distant hope behind the chaos, swallowing her. The missing briefcase, the seat swap, the skipped meal, the planted $20 bill. It's a relentless barrage, Paige Hensley's campaign to break her. But Lena keeps her hands steady, her posture unyielding, her resolve, a fire she's feeding with every slight. She's faced worse, she tells herself. Stood in courtrooms where her company's name was dragged through mud, walked past picket lines chanting her failure. And she's still the CEO of Carver Air, still the woman who built this plane from blueprints to reality. The cabin hums around her, passengers whispering, their eyes darting her way, then skittering off. The pinstripe guy 3 rows up still grumbling about his stolen wallet. The woman with the sleek bob clutching her purse like Lena's a contagion. The captain's words, "We'll sort it on the ground," echo in her skull, a vague threat she's turning over, plotting against, when his heavy footsteps thud back down the aisle, his shadow falling over her row. He's a tall man, 50s, his uniform crisp, his gray eyes hard as flint, his jaw set like he's already made up his mind. Paige trails him, her blonde ponytail swaying, her coral lips curved in a smirk that glows with victory, her clipboard tucked under her arm like a trophy. "Miss Carver," the captain says, his voice low, stern, cutting through the cabin's murmur. "There's an issue with your ticket. You'll need to disembark at our next stop, Phoenix." The words hit like a hammer, sharp and final, and the cabin stirs, a ripple of gasps and nods, the polo shirt guy muttering, "Good," loud enough to sting. Lena's chest tightens, her pulse spiking, but she keeps her face blank, her gaze lifting to meet the captain's with a calm that masks the storm inside. "What issue?" she asks, her tone even, probing, a lifeline she's throwing herself. Paige steps forward, her smirk widening, her voice smooth as oil. "An ID mismatch," she says, her eyes glinting with glee. "Your ticket doesn't line up with our records." Lena's brow lifts, her mind racing because she booked this flight herself. Her assistant triple-checked it, her ID scanned clean, at LAX. She reaches into her purse, the slim black clutch still open from Paige's frame job, and pulls out her driver's license, the plastic cool against her fingers, her name and photo clear as day. "Here," she says, holding it up, her voice steady. "It's valid." The captain takes it, his thick fingers turning it over, his eyes narrowing as he scans it, then hands it to Paige, who snatches it with a flick of her wrist, her smirk, faltering for a split second as she studies it, finding no flaw. "Could be fake," she says, her tone sharp now, tossing it back to Lena with a shrug. "We've seen good ones before." The captain's jaw shifts, his gaze flicking between them, but he doesn't argue, his silence a weight pressing down. Passengers lean in, the woman with the bob whispering, "Typical," her voice a needle in Lena's side, the pinstripe guy nodding like this proves his wallet tale. Lena's blood boils, a roar building in her chest, because this isn't a glitch, it's a lie. Paige's next swing in a fight she's rigged from the start. "It's not fake," she says, her words crisp, cutting through the attendant's game. "Check your system again." The captain hesitates, his fingers flexing, then nods once, a curt dip of his chin. "Stay put," he mutters, turning back toward the cockpit, leaving Paige hovering, her smirk twitching as she watches him go. Lena seizes the pause, her mind sharp, pulling her phone from her purse, her fingers swift as she dials her assistant, Mia, back in Los Angeles. The call connects, the signal faint but holding, and Mia's voice crackles through. "Lena, what's up?" Lena keeps it low, her tone urgent but calm. Flight issue. They're saying my ticket's off. Confirm it now. Mia's typing. Clicks through, fast and sure. Got it. Booked 3 weeks ago, seat 3B, paid in full. No flags. Lena's eyes flick to Paige, who's drifting closer, her ears perked, and she raises her voice just enough. Send me the receipt, Mia. And patch me to the captain. Mia's on it hums through, and seconds later the phone pings, the email glowing on her screen, proof in black and white. The captain's footsteps thud back, his face tighter now, and Lena holds up the phone, the receipt a shield. Confirmed, she says, her voice steady. No mismatch. He takes it, his gray eyes scanning, his jaw clenching as he reads, then hands it back, his nod grudging. Fine, he says, his tone clipped. You stay. He turns, retreating again, leaving, Paige standing there, her smirk gone, her eyes narrowing to slits, her victory snatched away. Lena's heart slows, a flicker of triumph sparking, thinking she's won this round, cleared her name again. But Paige doesn't retreat, doesn't sulk, just pivots, her heels clicking toward a uniformed cop lingering near the galley. A broad man with a buzz cut and a holstered gun, his presence a shadow she's kept in reserve. She leans in, her voice a hiss Lena catches. She's trouble. Keep an eye on her. And the cop nods, his hand resting on his belt, his gaze locking onto Lena with a cold, unblinking stare. Lena's triumph fades, her pulse ticking back up, because this isn't over, not with Paige's smirk creeping back, not with that cop watching her every breath. She sits there, her license back in her purse, her phone in her lap, the receipt a hollow win as the cabin settles, passengers easing, off, their whispers fading but the tension stays, a noose tightening around her. The denim guy shifts, his elbow brushing her again. The button-down man sipping his wine like nothing's happened, their indifference a slap. Lena's hunger sharpens, her ribs ache, but she keeps her face stone, her hands steady, refusing to crack under this latest shove. She's faced worse, she tells herself, stared down cops at protests, lawyers at depositions, and she's still here, still flying her own jet. A truth Paige can't touch yet. The flight drones on, the sky outside a pitch-black void, Phoenix looming closer. And Lena waits, her mind racing, her patience a blade she's sharpening for the next blow, because Paige isn't done, not by a long shot. And the cop's stare tells her the war's just heating up. She's not breaking, not yet, not when she knows she holds the ace, the one card Paige can't see, the one that'll turn this whole flight upside down when she plays it. Lena Carver sits locked in her middle seat, the first-class cabin a pressure cooker at 38,000 feet, the air thick with the hum of engines and the faint clatter of glassware from the galley. The leather armrests press into her sides. The denim-clad man on her left hunched over his empty tray, his elbow grazing her ribs with every shift, the button-down guy on her right sipping the last of his wine, his knee still crowding her space. Their presence a constant shove she refuses to buckle under. Her gray suit jacket stays folded in her lap, the silk of her blouse clinging to her skin, damp with the sweat of hunger and the weight of Paige Hensley's relentless war. Her brown eyes fixed on the seat back ahead, tracing the flight paths, slow crawl toward Phoenix, now a looming deadline in this spiraling mess. The missing briefcase, the seat swap, the skipped meal, the planted bill, the deplaning threat. It's a gauntlet of blows, each one sharper, more vicious, but Lena keeps. Her hands steady, her posture stiff, her resolve a steel spine forged in fights she's won against steeper odds. She's faced worse, she tells herself, stood in boardrooms where her voice was drowned out, walked through protests where batons swung, and she's still the CEO of Carver Air, still the woman who owns this jet down to its rivets. The cabin buzzes softly around her, passengers easing into the flight's rhythm, their whispers fading, the cop's cold stare lingering from the galley. A shadow Paige has sicked on her like a guard dog. She's mid-thought, plotting how to turn that stare into her advantage, when Paige sweeps back into view, her heels silent on the carpet, a silver tray balanced in her hands, crystal flutes of champagne sparkling under the golden lights. Her blonde ponytail sways as she moves, her coral lips curved in a smirk that's all teeth, her blue eyes glinting with a malice Lena's come to recognize. She stops at the row ahead, offering drinks with a honeyed "Enjoy, sir" to the pinstripe guy, his ruddy face nodding as he takes one, then glides past the woman with the sleek bob who accepts hers with a tight smile. Paige reaches Lena's row, her tray tilting slightly, her smirk widening, and then, with a flick of her wrist, she trips. A sharp stumble that sends a rush of icy champagne splashing across Lena's lap, the cold liquid soaking through, her silk blouse seeping into her skirt, spreading dark stains down her thighs like a bruise. The cabin freezes, a sharp inhale cutting through the silence, the denim guy jerking back, the button-down man snorting into his glass, their eyes wide with shock, then amusement. "Oops, clumsy me," Paige chirps, her voice light, teasing, her head tilting as she sets the tray aside, her smirk blooming into a full grin. Lena's skin prickles, the cold biting into her flesh, her pulse hammering, but she keeps her face blank, her hands steady, refusing to flinch under this latest assault. The wet fabric clings to her, a humiliating chill she can't shake, but she reaches for the flimsy napkin on her armrest, the one left from the meal she never got, and wipes her lap with slow, deliberate strokes, her eyes locking onto Paige's, with a calm that belies the fire roaring inside. Passengers gawk, the polo shirt guy across the aisle pulling out his phone, snapping a quick photo, his lips twitching as he mutters, "She's a mess now," loud enough to sting. The woman with the bob stifles a laugh, her hand pressing to her mouth, her pearls glinting as she turns away. Lena's blood boils, a roar building in her chest, but she keeps her movements smooth, her voice steady, cutting through the mockery like a blade. "I'd like a towel," she says, her tone level, a quiet demand that hangs in the air. Paige's smirk falters, her eyes narrowing, but she recovers fast, her hand dipping into her pocket to pull out a single cocktail napkin, thin and crumpled, extending it with a small, condescending smile. "This should help," she says, her voice dripping with fake concern, letting it dangle between them like a taunt. Lena doesn't reach for it, her hands pausing on her lap, the wet silk chilling her skin, her gaze unblinking as she meets Paige's stare, a silent standoff she refuses to lose. The moment stretches, the cabin watching, the denim guy chuckling low. "Guess that's all she gets," his buddy nodding with a smirk. Paige shrugs, a slow roll of her shoulders, and drops the napkin onto the armrest, pivoting with a flick of her ponytail, her heels clicking as she struts off, her victory glowing in every step. Lena sits there, the napkin untouched, the champagne soaking deeper, her thighs numb with cold. But she doesn't adjust, doesn't wipe again, letting the discomfort settle into fuel. Paige isn't done, though, her smirk still burning in Lena's mind as she reaches the galley, her voice rising over the hum loud enough to carry. "Apologies, everyone, for the spill," she announces, her tone bright, performative. "Some passengers just can't handle first class." The cabin erupts, a roar of laughter rolling through, the pinstripe guy guffawing, his hand slapping his tray, the woman with the bob giggling behind her glass, the polo shirt guy grinning as he pockets his phone. Lena's jaw clenches, her nails digging into her palms, the wet fabric a second skin now, but she keeps her face stone, her posture stiff, refusing to give Paige the crack she's fishing for. The cop shifts near the galley, his buzz-cut head tilting, his hand still on his belt, his stare sharpening as Paige whispers something to him, her eyes flicking back to Lena with a glint of triumph. Lena's heart pounds, her hunger sharpening into a blade, her ribs aching from the men's bulk, but she holds steady, her mind racing, plotting her next move. She's faced worse, she tells herself, sat through spills of a different kind, insults slung across conference tables, and she's still here, still flying her own jet. A truth Paige can't touch yet. The laughter dies down, the cabin settling, passengers sipping their drinks, oblivious to the war brewing in row 3. Lena's blouse clings, the cold seeping into her bones, but she doesn't shiver, doesn't shift, letting the humiliation sit there, a weight she'll turn against. Paige when the time's right. The attendant's smirk lingers in her mind, that can't handle first class, a taunt she's heard in different words, different rooms, Always the same tune. She doesn't belong. Not here. Not anywhere that matters. Paige thinks she's won. Thinks she's got Lena pinned, dripping and broken. But Lena's not cracking. Not yet. Not when she's faced down bigger storms and come out on top. The flight stretches on, the sky outside a starless void, Phoenix drawing closer, and Lena sits there, soaked, starving, hemmed in, her defiance a fire she's stoking for the reckoning ahead. Paige doesn't know it, doesn't see it, but the woman she's drenched in champagne owns this plane. Every light, every tray, every smug laugh she's milking, and Lena's holding that card close, waiting for the moment to play it, to turn. This assault into Paige's next mistake in a fight she's about to lose bad. Lena Carver sits soaked and starving in her middle seat, the first-class cabin a tinderbox at 38,000 feet, the air thick with the hum of engines and the sour bite of spilled champagne clinging to her silk blouse. The leather armrests dig into her ribs. The denim-clad man on her left hunched away, his elbow no longer jabbing now that he's bought Paige Hensley's lies. The button-down guy on her right gripping his empty glass, his knee still crowding her space. Their silence. A cage she refuses to rattle. Her gray suit jacket stays folded in her lap, the wet fabric of her skirt chilling her thighs. Her brown eyes locked on the seatback ahead, tracing the flight path's slow crawl toward Phoenix, now a looming battlefield in this spiraling war. The missing briefcase, the seat swap, the skipped meal, the planted bill, the deplaning threat, the champagne assault. It's a relentless onslaught, each strike more brutal. But Lena keeps her hands steady, her posture unyielding, her resolve, a steel wall forged in fights she's won against fiercer foes. She's faced worse, she tells herself, stood in courtrooms where her name was slandered, walked through gauntlets of hate, and she's still the CEO of Carver Air, still the woman who owns this jet down to its bolts. The cabin buzzes around her, passengers shifting, their whispers a low hum. The cop's cold stare burning from the galley, a shadow Paige has weaponized against her. She's mid-thought, plotting how to flip that stare, when Paige sweeps back, into view, her heels silent on the carpet, her blonde ponytail swaying, her coral lips curved in a smirk that's pure venom. She stops near the front, her voice rising over the hum, loud and deliberate, a match struck in dry grass. "Folks, we've got a disruptive passenger here," she says, her eyes locking onto Lena, her tone sharp, accusing. "Someone who doesn't belong in first class." The cabin stirs, heads turning, a ripple of murmurs swelling, and then a white woman in a red blazer 3 rows up leaps to her feet, her voice shrill with entitlement. "I paid for peace, not this nonsense," she snaps, her manicured hand jabbing the air toward Lena, her platinum bob bouncing with every word. Others join, a chorus of outrage erupting, the pinstripe guy growling, "Get her out of here," the polo shirt guy nodding, "She's ruining the flight." Lena's chest tightens, her pulse spiking, but she keeps her face blank, her hands steady, watching as Paige's smirk widens, her blue eyes glinting with triumph, feeding the fire she's lit. The cop steps forward, his buzz-cut head gleaming. Under the lights, his broad frame filling the aisle, his hand resting on his holster as he moves toward Lena's row, his voice gruff. "Ma'am, we need to ensure safety." Before she can respond, he grabs her wrist, cold metal cuffs snapping, shut with a click, the bite of steel sharp against her skin, his grip yanking her to her feet. Lena's heart pounds, her mind racing, but she keeps her voice steady, cutting through the chaos like a blade. "I'm not a threat," she says, her tone firm, a lifeline she clings to, twisting her cuffed hands to pull her Carver Air ID from her purse, the laminated card flashing her title, CEO. "This proves who I am," she says, holding it up, her eyes locking onto the cops, daring him to see the truth. Paige swoops in, her smirk twitching, snatching the ID with a flick of her wrist, her voice rising over the growing roar. "Probably stolen," she says, tossing it back with a shrug, her words a spark on gasoline. The cabin explodes. Passengers, shouting, "Get her off! She doesn't belong! Thief!" The red blazer woman screaming, "I want her gone now!" Lena's blood boils, a roar building in her chest, but she keeps her posture stiff, her gaze unblinking, refusing to crack under this mob's hate. The cop yanks her forward, his grip bruising, dragging her down the aisle, her wet skirt slapping her legs, her heels scraping the carpet as passengers lean in, their faces twisted with glee. The polo shirt guy spitting. Good riddance. The pinstripe man nodding. About time. Lena's mind spins, her hunger sharpening into a blade because she's beaten this before, cleared her name, held her ground. But this is a tidal wave. Paige's lies turning the cabin into a lynch mob. They reach the galley, the cop shoving her against the counter, her ribs slamming into the edge, pain flaring, but she twists free, her voice rising. Check my ID, call my office. The cop hesitates, his gray eyes narrowing, but Paige cuts. In, her smirk glowing, her voice a hiss. She's an intruder. I've already called Phoenix Security. Lena's heart sinks, her triumph from the ticket fight dissolving. Because this isn't just a threat now, it's action. Paige doubling down with a vengeance she can't out-talk here. The cop nods, his hand tightening on her arm, dragging her toward the hatch, the cabin cheering. A wall of hate she can't break yet. Lena's ribs throb, her wrists ache, but she keeps her chin high, her eyes blazing, refusing to bend under this latest blow. She's faced worse, she tells herself, stared down mobs with louder voices, and she's still here, still the one who owns this plane, a truth Paige can't erase. The galley looms, the hatch ahead, Phoenix minutes away, and Lena stands there, cuffed, soaked, starving, her defiance afire she's stoking for the fight ahead. Paige thinks she's won, thinks she's got Lena beaten, but Lena's not breaking. Not yet. Not when she holds the ace Paige can't see, the one that'll turn this mob into her reckoning. What's your take on this chaos? Comment 1 if you'd shove back against that mob, or 2 if you'd stand tall like Lena, letting them dig their own graves. If this injustice has your blood boiling, hit that like button and subscribe to see how this fight explodes next. Ever been cornered by a crowd baying for your head? Tell us below, because Lena's not done yet. How's she gonna claw her way out of those cuffs? Lena Carver stands cuffed in the galley, the first-class cabin, a volatile echo chamber at 38,000 feet. The air thick with the hum of engines and the bitter tang of champagne still soaking her silk blouse. Her wrists ache under the cold bite of steel, the cop's bruising grip a constant pressure, his buzz-cut head tilted as he holds her against the counter, her ribs throbbing from the slam, her gray suit jacket clutched in her free hand, the wet fabric of her skirt chilling her legs. Her brown eyes blaze with a fire she refuses to let die, tracing the galley's sterile walls, the hatch looming ahead, Phoenix minutes away. A deadline Paige Hensley has turned into a trap. The missing briefcase, the seat swap, the skipped meal, the planted bill, the deplaning threat, the champagne assault, the mob's roar. It's a brutal cascade, each blow fiercer. But Lena keeps her posture stiff, her resolve a steel core forged in fights she's won against steeper odds. She's faced worse, she tells herself, stood in boardrooms where her empire was mocked, walked through streets where her skin was a target, and she's still the CEO of Carver Air, still the woman who owns this jet down to its wiring. The cabin buzzes behind her, passengers cheering her exit, their voices a wall of hate, the red blazer woman's shrill, finally, cutting through. The pinstripe guy's grunt of approval, a dull thud. The cop shifts, his gray eyes hard, his hand tightening as the plane begins its descent. The engine's whining, the floor tilting beneath her heels. Lena's heart pounds, her hunger sharpening into a blade, but she keeps her chin high, her voice steady, slicing through the chaos. "You're making a mistake," she says, her tone firm, a lifeline she clings to. But the cop doesn't flinch, his grip unyielding as Paige strides in, her blonde ponytail swaying, her coral lips curved in a smirk that glows with victory. "Told you she didn't belong," she says, her voice loud, triumphant, her blue eyes glinting as she leans against the galley wall, watching Lena like a hunter savoring the kill. The plane jolts, wheels screeching against the Phoenix tarmac, a hard landing that rattles the cabin, and the captain's voice crackles over the intercom. Emergency stop. All passengers remain seated. The hatch opens, hot desert air rushing in, and security storms aboard. 2 men in black vests, radios crackling, their boots thumping as they flank the cop, their faces set, their hands on their belts. "This her?" one asks, his voice gruff, and Paige nods, her smirk widening. "That's the intruder." Lena's blood boils, a roar building in her chest, but she keeps her face stone, her hands steady in the cuffs, refusing to crack under this latest shove. The security team yanks her forward, her heels scraping the jet bridge, the cop trailing behind. Paige's smirk burning in her mind as they haul her into the terminal, a stark white hall buzzing with late-night travelers. They shove her into a holding room, a gray box with a metal table, the cuffs clanking as they sit her down, her wet clothes chilling her skin, her ribs aching with every breath. ID, the lead guard grunts, and Lena pulls her Carver Air card. From her purse, the laminated proof flashing her title, CEO, her photo stern beside it. He scans it, his brow furrowing, then steps out, his radio crackling as he mutters to someone beyond the door. Minutes stretch, Lena's mind racing, plotting, her hunger a dull roar she pushes down, and then the guard returns, his face tight, uncuffing her with a reluctant, "Checks out." She's free, her wrists raw, her triumph flickering, but the flight's gone, resumed without her, Paige's voice echoing in her skull. She didn't belong. Lena's not done though, her resolve hardening as she pulls her phone, dialing Mia, her assistant's voice crackling through. "Lena, what's happening?" "Grounded me in Phoenix," she says, her tone sharp. "Get me back on private access now." Mia's typing flies. "Jet bridge override. Your code's active. Go." Lena moves, her heels clicking through the terminal, her wet blouse sticking, her jacket over her arm, finding the Carver air staff door, her override key swiping clean, the panel beeping green. She strides back onto the plane, the hatch still open, the cabin humming as passengers settle, and steps into first class, her chin high, her eyes blazing, the champagne stains a badge of war. "I'm back," she says, her voice cutting through the stunned silence, locking onto Paige, who stands mid-aisle, her tray clattering to the floor, her face paling, her smirk dissolving into shock. Passengers gape, the red blazer woman choking on her drink, the pinstripe guy blinking, the denim, Ben muttering, "What the hell?" Lena's heart surges, a rush of victory flooding her, thinking she's flipped this, reclaimed her ground. But Paige recovers fast, her eyes narrowing to slits, her hand snatching the radio from her belt. "Captain, we've got a stowaway," she snaps, her voice rising, shrill and urgent, her smirk creeping back as she pivots, striding toward the cockpit, leaving Lena standing there, her triumph crumbling, the cop shifting near the galley, his hand back on his belt, his stare locking. On again, Lena's pulse spikes, her mind spinning. Because this isn't over. Not with Paige doubling down, not with that radio call echoing, not with security's boots thumping back up the jet bridge, their radios crackling. "Where's the intruder?" She's cleared her name, fought off the cuffs, reboarded her own plane. But Paige's lie twists it all, a fresh blade sinking deeper, the cabin stirring again, passengers whispering, "She's back?" How'd she get in? Lena's ribs throb, her hunger sharpens, her wet clothes a second skin. But she keeps her posture stiff, her hands steady, refusing to bend under this latest blow. She's faced worse, she tells herself. Climbed out of traps tighter than this, and she's still here, still the one who owns this jet, a truth Paige can't bury yet. The cop steps closer, his gray eyes hard, his voice gruff. "Ma'am, we need to talk." And security flanks him, their vests gleaming under the lights, their hands twitching toward their belts. Lena stands there, her heels planted, her eyes blazing, her defiance a fire she's stoking for the fight ahead. Because Paige isn't done, not by a long shot. And this re-entry, this win, is just a spark in a war about to ignite. The flight resumes, the engines revving, Phoenix fading below, and Lena waits, her mind sharp, her patience a weapon she's honing for the reckoning to come, knowing she holds the ace, the one card Paige can't see, the one that'll turn this whole mess upside down when she plays it. Lena Carver stands defiant in the first-class cabin, the jet slicing through the sky at 38,000 feet, the air thick with the roar of engines and the sharp tang of champagne still soaking her silk blouse. Her heels plant firm on the carpet, her gray suit jacket clutched in her hand, the wet fabric of her skirt chilling her legs, her brown eyes blazing with a fire she refuses to let die, locked on Paige Hensley's retreating figure as the attendant's radio call, "Stow away!" echoes down the aisle. Her wrists still ache from the cuffs, her ribs throb from the galley slam. Her hunger a gnawing beast she's tamed. But she keeps her posture stiff. Her resolve a steel spine forged in battles she's won against steeper odds. The missing briefcase, the seat swap, the skipped meal, the planted bill, the deplaning threat, the champagne assault, the mob's roar, the phoenix grounding. It's a relentless storm, each wave crashing harder, but Lena's back on her. Plain, her turf. Thinking she's turned the tide, reclaimed her ground. She's faced worse, she tells herself. Stood in courtrooms where her empire was attacked. Walked through riots where her skin was a bullseye. And she's still the CEO of Carver Air. Still the woman who owns this jet down to its bolts. The cabin buzzes around her. Passengers stirring from the Phoenix stop. Their whispers swelling into a hum. The red blazer woman coughing on her drink. The pinstripe guy blinking in shock. The denim man muttering, "She's back?" Paige reaches the galley, her blonde ponytail whipping as she spins, her coral lips parting in a snarl, her blue eyes glinting with a fury that shed all pretense. "She's endangering us!" she screams, her voice shrill, cutting through. The hum, her hands jabbing the air toward Lena, a match tossed into a powder keg. The cabin explodes, passengers leaping to their feet, their outrage a tidal wave, the polo shirt guy shouting, "She shouldn't be here!" The woman with the sleek bob yelling, "Get her out!" Lena's chest tightens, her pulse spiking, but she keeps her face stone, her hands steady, watching as the mob surges, fueled by Paige's lie, their hate a living thing. The cop lunges from the galley, his buzz-cut head gleaming, his broad frame barreling down the aisle. But he's not fast enough. The pinstripe guy moving first, his ruddy face twisted as he shoves Lena hard, his hand slamming her shoulder, sending her stumbling back, her heel catching the carpet. "You don't belong," he roars, his breath hot with bourbon, and the red blazer woman joins, her manicured nails clawing at Lena's arm, screeching, "Off this plane!" Lena's heart pounds, her mind racing, but she twists free, her voice rising. "I'm not a threat," her tone firm, a lifeline she clings to, but the mob doesn't hear, doesn't care, their shouts drowning her out. The denim man hurls his glass, the crystal shattering inches from her head, shards spraying the seat back. A jagged rain she ducks, her hair loosening from its bun, strands falling across her face. Paige screams over the chaos, her voice piercing. "She's armed!" Her eyes wild, her hand pointing as the cop charges, his boots thumping, his gray eyes hard with intent. He tackles Lena, his weight slamming her to the floor, her ribs screaming as she hits the carpet, his knee pinning her back, her wrists twisting as he yanks them behind her, cuffs snapping shut again, colder, tighter, biting into her raw skin. "Found it!" Paige yells, darting to Lena's old seat, pulling a cheap kitchen knife from the cushion, its blade glinting under the lights, a prop she's planted with a grin, holding it up like a trophy. Gasps erupt, the cabin reeling, the polo shirt guy shouting, "She's a terrorist!" The woman with the bob clutching her pearls, "Oh my God!" Lena's blood runs cold, her breath ragged, but she keeps her voice steady, twisting under the cop's knee. "That's not mine!" Her words, sharp, slicing through the lie. Her eyes locking onto Paige's with a fury that could burn steel. The cop hesitates, his grip loosening a fraction, but Paige doubles down, her smirk glowing. "She's lying! Cuff her tighter!" The mob roars, passengers pressing in, the pinstripe guy kicking at Lena's legs, his shoe grazing her shin, pain flaring, the red blazer woman shrieking, "Throw her out!" Lena's mind spins, her hunger sharpening into a blade, because she's beaten worse, cleared her name, fought off mobs. But this is a death trap, Paige twisting her into a monster they'll kill to stop. She twists again, her strength surging, breaking free of the cop's knee, rolling to her side, her voice rising. "Check the knife, it's not mine." The cop pauses, his gray eyes narrowing, but the captain's voice crackles over the intercom. "FBI's waiting in New York. Stay seated." His tone hard, final, the cockpit door slamming shut with a thud, a lock clicking into place. Paige grins, her ponytail bouncing as she steps back, her victory glowing, thinking she's untouchable. Lena pinned, broken, a terrorist in their eyes. The cop yanks her up, his grip bruising, shoving her into the galley, her ribs slamming the counter again, pain exploding. but she stands tall, her cuffs clanking, her blouse tearing at the shoulder, her wet skirt slapping her legs. Security hovers near the hatch, their radios crackling, but they don't move. The captain's orders holding them, the flight resuming, the engines revving toward New York. Now a guillotine looming. Lena's heart pounds, her ribs scream, her hunger, a dull roar, but she keeps her face stone, her hands steady in the cuffs, refusing to crack under this deadliest blow yet. She's faced worse, she tells herself. Stood in rooms where her life was on the line, walked through nights where her skin was a death sentence, and she's still here, still the one who owns this plane, a truth Paige can't bury. The cabin settles, passengers sinking back, their hate simmering. The cop looming beside her, his hand on his gun, his stare unblinking. Paige's grin a silent taunt from the aisle. Lena stands there, cuffed, battered, soaked, her defiance a fire she's stoking for the fight ahead. Because Paige isn't done, not with that knife, not with the FBI waiting. And this mutiny, this near lynching, is just a spark in a war she's about to turn upside down. The flight drones on, the sky outside a pitch-black void, New York drawing closer, and Lena waits, her mind sharp, her patience a weapon she's honing for the reckoning to come, knowing she holds the ace, the one card Paige can't see, the one that'll shatter this chaos when she plays it. Lena Carver stands battered in the galley, the first-class cabin a volatile crucible at 38,000 feet, the air thick with the roar of engines and the sour stench of champagne still soaking her torn silk blouse. Her wrists burn under the cuffs, the cop's bruising grip pinning her against the counter, her ribs screaming from the slams, her gray suit jacket clutched in her hand, the wet fabric of her skirt chilling her legs, her brown eyes blazing with a fire she refuses to let die. Her hair hangs loose from its bun, strands sticking to her sweat-slicked face, her hunger a gnawing beast she's mastered, but she keeps her posture stiff, her resolve a steel core forged in battles she's won against deadlier odds. The missing briefcase, the seat swap, the skipped meal, the planted bill, the deplaning threat, the champagne assault, the mob's roar, the Phoenix grounding, the mid-air mutiny. It's a relentless hurricane, each gust fiercer, but Lena's still here, back on her plane, her turf, fighting a war Paige Hensley thinks she's won. She's faced worse, she tells herself. Stood in courtrooms where her empire was bled dry, walked through nights where her skin was a death warrant, and she's still the CEO of Carver Air, still the woman who owns this jet down to its rivets. The cabin buzzes behind her, passengers simmering after the mutiny, their hate a low hum. The red blazer woman muttering, "She's dangerous." The pinstripe guy nodding, "Should have stayed off." The cop looms beside her, his buzz cut, head tilted, his hand on his gun, his gray eyes hard, security hovering near the hatch, their radios crackling, the captain's FBI's waiting echoing in her skull. Paige stands mid-aisle, her blonde ponytail swaying, her coral lips parted in a grin, her blue eyes glinting with a triumph she's sure is hers, the planted knife still in her hand, a prop she's twirling like a victor's flag. Lena's heart pounds, her ribs throb, but she spots the intercom mic dangling from the galley wall, a lifeline she seizes mid-struggle, wrenching free of the cop's grip, her cuffed hands snatching it, her voice booming through the cabin, cutting through the chaos like thunder. "I own Carver Air, this is my plane," she declares, her tone sharp, unyielding, a truth she hurls like a grenade, her eyes locking onto Paige's, daring her to deny it. The cabin freezes, a stunned silence swallowing the hum, and then the screens flicker, every seatback flashing white text on black, "Owner of this flight, Lena Carver." The message stark, undeniable, a hammer dropping on their hate. Passengers gape, the polo shirt guy blinking, his phone slipping from his hand, the woman with the sleek bob choking on her breath, her pearls clattering as she grips her armrest. Paige stammers, her grin faltering, her voice shrill. "She's lying." But it's weak, cracking, her eyes darting as the cop steps back, his hand dropping from his gun, his gray eyes narrowing with doubt. Lena's phone buzzes in her purse, Mia's voice crackling through on speaker. "Lena, you there?" And she nods, her voice steady. "Patch me to Carver HQ now." Seconds later, the COO's voice booms over the line, a deep baritone cutting through. "Paige Hensley, you're fired. Effective immediately. relieved of duty, escorted off at landing, disciplinary action pending. The words land like a guillotine. The cabin reeling, the red blazer woman sinking back, her face paling, the pinstripe guy staring at his tray, his bourbon untouched. Lena's heart surges, a rush of victory flooding her, thinking she's flipped this, crushed Paige, reclaimed her plane. But Paige doesn't crumble, doesn't retreat, her grin twisting into something feral, her eyes wild with a fury that shed all reason. She lunges, her nails clawing at Lena's face, raking her cheek, a sharp sting erupting as blood beads, her voice a shriek. "You'll pay!" The cop reacts, yanking Paige back, his grip iron, security rushing in, their boots thumping, dragging her down the aisle, her heels kicking, her ponytail thrashing as she screams, "This isn't over, you hear me?" Passengers flinch, the denim man muttering, "Crazy." The button-down guy shifting away, their hate dissolving into unease. Lena stands there, her cheeks stinging, her cuffs clanking, her blouse torn, her skirt soaked. But her chin lifts, her eyes blazing, her triumph glowing despite the blood trickling down her jaw. The cop uncuffs her, his movements stiff, his voice gruff. "Sorry, ma'am," stepping back, his authority crumbling, security hauling Paige toward the hatch, her shrieks fading as they reach the galley, her vow of revenge a bitter echo. "I'll ruin you." The cabin settles, a heavy silence falling, passengers avoiding her gaze, the red blazer woman clutching her purse, the polo shirt guy staring at his feet, the captain's voice crackling. "Flight resuming, New York in 2 hours." His tone clipped, shaken. Lena's ribs ache, her hunger sharpens, but she keeps her posture stiff, her hands steady, brushing her cheek, the blood smearing on her fingers, a badge of this war she's won, for now. She's faced worse, she tells herself, stood in rooms where her life was bartered, walked through hells where her skin was a curse, and she's still here, still the one who owns this plane, a truth Paige can't claw away. The screens still flash her name, owner, Lena Carver. A silent roar she's unleashed, and she steps back into the aisle, her heels clicking, her presence a force they can't ignore. The cop retreating, security vanishing with Paige, her screams a distant wail from the tarmac below. Lena's heart slows, her mind racing, plotting the fallout, because Paige's exit isn't the end, not with that vow ringing, not with the FBI looming, not with a cabin full of witnesses who'll twist this however they want. She's won this, round-crushed Paige's career, turned the mutiny into her stage. But the war's not over. Not when Paige's hate is a live wire, sparking beyond these walls. The flight drones on, the sky outside a starless void, New York drawing closer. And Lena stands there, battered, bloodied, unbroken, her defiance a fire she's stoking for the reckoning ahead, knowing she holds the ace. The one card Paige couldn't. See, the one that's flipped this chaos but not ended it, not yet. Lena Carver steps out of the galley, the first-class cabin a hushed battlefield at 38,000 feet. The air thick with the hum of engines and the faint copper tang of blood drying on her cheek. Her silk blouse hangs in tatters, champagne, stains darkening the fabric, her gray suit jacket draped over her arm, the wet skirt clinging to her legs, her brown eyes blazing with a fire she refuses to let die, her loose hair framing her face like a crown of defiance, her wrists sting from the cuffs, her ribs ache from the slams, her hunger a dull roar she's conquered, but she keeps her posture stiff, her resolve a steel spine forged in wars she's won against deadlier odds. The missing briefcase, the seat swap, the skipped meal, the planted bill, the deplaning threat, the champagne assault, the mob's roar, the Phoenix grounding, the mid-air mutiny, Paige's clawing exit. It's a brutal odyssey, each blow fiercer. But Lena's still standing, her plane, her turf, her victory etched in the screen's flashing owner, Lena Carver, a truth that silenced the hate for now. She's faced worse, she tells herself, stood in rooms where her empire was gutted, walked through nights where her skin was a death sentence, and she's still the CEO of Carver Air, still the woman who owns this jet down to its seams. The cabin hums around her, passengers sunk in their seats, their eyes averted, the red blazer woman clutching her purse, her platinum bob limp, the pinstripe guy staring at his tray, his bourbon untouched, the polo shirt guy slouched, his phone dark. The cop lingers near the galley, his buzz-cut head bowed, his hand off his gun, his authority shattered, security gone with Paige's shrieks fading on the Phoenix tarmac, her vow of revenge a bitter echo in the recycled air. The captain's voice crackles. Landing in New York, 10 minutes. His tone flat, shaken, and the plane dips, the skyline glittering below. A jagged promise of rest Lena's earned. She moves down the aisle, her heels clicking a steady beat, her cheek stinging where Paige's nails raked, blood crusting in thin lines, her presence a force they can't ignore, and as the wheels kiss the tarmac, a soft jolt shaking the cabin. Passengers rise, their murmurs swelling into applause. A reluctant cheer for the woman they tried to break. Incredible, the woman with the sleek bob whispers, her pearls glinting as she nods, the denim man clapping stiffly. Didn't see that coming. His buddy in the button-down joining, their hands slow, unsure. Lena's heart surges, a rush of triumph flooding her, thinking she's won. Flip this nightmare into a legend, her name a shield they can't pierce. She steps off the jet bridge into JFK, the terminal buzzing with late-night chaos, travelers dragging bags, screens blaring delays, and a small crowd waits, phones up, snapping photos, their voices rising. That's her. She owns it. Her lips twitch, a faint smile breaking through, her stride steady despite the pain, her victory glowing as she heads for the exit, ready to call Mia, to debrief, to rest. But outside, the air shifts, a cold slap of New York wind cutting through, and then a bottle shatters at her feet, glass spraying her shins, a sharp sting flaring as shouts erupt. Liar! Fraud! A mob surges, 30, maybe 40 strong, their faces twisted with rage, signs jabbing the air, justice for Paige. Black CEO assaults crew. Lena freezes, her pulse spiking, her mind spinning, because this isn't random. Not with Paige's name blazing on their cardboard, not with their hate mirroring the cabin's roar. Another bottle flies, grazing her shoulder, pain blooming, and she stumbles back, her heels scraping the pavement, her jacket slipping to the ground as cops rush in, not to help, but to grab her, their hands rough, cuffs snapping shut again, colder, tighter, biting into her raw wrists. You're under arrest, one growls, his badge glinting, his voice hard. Assault, disorderly conduct. And Lena's heart sinks, her triumph crumbling, because this is Paige's doing. Her vow made real, a trap sprung beyond the plane. The mob cheers, lock her up! Their phones flashing, recording, a viral storm she can't outrun, and the cops drag her to a cruiser, her ribs screaming, her cheek bleeding anew, her wet clothes a second skin as they shove her inside. The door slamming with a thud, the terminal fading behind tinted glass. Lena's mind races, piecing it together, Paige's voice on that tarmac. I'll ruin you. Not just a threat, but a plan. A video hitting the web while she flew, a twisted cut of the flight. Lena painted as the villain, Paige the victim. Her firing spun into a racist attack, allies in the precinct flipping the script. Impounding her plane with a warrant she can't see yet. She's alone, the cruiser's seats hard, the cuffs cutting, her hunger sharpening into a blade. But she keeps her face stone, her hands steady, refusing to crack under this deadliest blow yet. She's faced worse, she tells herself. Sat in cells where her rights were a joke, walked through hells where her skin was a crime, and she's still here, still the one who owns Carver Air. A truth they can't jail. The mob's roar fades, the cruiser rolling through New York's neon blur, and Lena sits there, battered, bloodied, cuffed, her mind sharp, plotting the fallout. Because this isn't the end. Not with Paige's hate a wildfire. Not with her. Plane seized, her name smeared, her fight stolen. Her lawyer's number burns in her skull. Mia's voice a lifeline she'll call. Evidence stacked in her office to bury them all. The flight logs, the witnesses, the screens flashing her name. She smiles, a cold thin curve, her eyes glinting in the dark because they think they've won. Think they've broken her. But Lena's not done. Not when she's clawed out of deeper pits. Not when she holds the truth. The one card they can't. See, the one that'll turn this cell into their reckoning. The cruiser slows, the precinct looming, a gray fortress she'll walk out of. Her defiance a fire she's stoking for the war ahead. Because this isn't over. It's just begun. And she'll own the battlefield when the dust settles. Her empire intact. her enemy's ash. Lena Carver's harrowing journey aboard her own plane reveals stark truths about resilience, power, and the pervasive grip of racial injustice. The first lesson is the strength found in silence. Lena's refusal to crack under Paige's relentless assault shows that composure can be a weapon, turning humiliation into fuel for victory. Her patience, honed through years of facing systemic bias, underscores that enduring hate doesn't mean accepting it. It's about choosing the right moment to strike back. Second, the story exposes how racism thrives in unchecked authority. Paige's escalating cruelty, from mocking Lena's presence to framing her as a terrorist, mirrors real-world abuses of power that target the marginalized, often with a mob's blind support. It's a chilling reminder that prejudice doesn't need evidence, just opportunity. Third, ownership isn't enough. Lena's title as CEO couldn't shield her from a cabin's hate or a precinct's cuffs, proving that status bends under the weight of bias unless wielded with unwavering resolve. Finally, the twist of Paige's viral revenge teaches that battles against racism don't end with one win. Hate adapts, striking from new angles, demanding constant vigilance. Lena's cold smile in that cell, plotting her comeback, is the ultimate lesson. True power lies in rising again, turning every blow into a stepping stone. So what's your takeaway from Lena's fight? Comment below if you've ever turned silence into strength. Hit like if this tale of grit resonates. Subscribe for more racism stories that hit hard, and share if you believe justice deserves a louder voice. Thanks for joining this wild ride. Here's to courage outlasting every storm.